Welcome back, sewists. I am continuing to work on fabrics in my stash. Today I want to work on one of my Portugal fabrics. When I bought it, I knew it was going to be for placemats. I bought plenty in case I didn't find something to go as a companion. I could use it on both sides, or I could make an apron or other things out of it. So today we're going to work on the placemats. Specifically, I'm going to show you the fabrics down here that I have, including my Portugal one, and then things from my stash and some things that I've picked up to go with it. I am sewing this for someone else, so I sent them pictures so that they could pick what they liked out of it. And we're going to use ric-rac, and I'm going to use it for some edging to kind of give a scalloped edge. So we're going to sandwich it in there. Someone had sent me a message on another video saying they'd like to see how it's done, and I thought this is the perfect application for it. The other thing we're going to use is the fusible batting. That is not very thick, but it'll give a little bit of depth to it. The other thing that it helps is because I think I am going to be using a yellow gingham. The yellow gingham shadows through other fabrics, including like the ric-rac that I'm going to be sandwiching. So by putting that batting in there, it'll help prevent that from shadowing through. So let's look at our fabrics down here, and I'll talk about the ones that I think I'm going to use today. Okay, so I have 3 ric-racs that I ordered from Amazon. I believe there's 27 yards on a spool like this. Now, this is a more mustardy yellow, and this is, I don't know, ochre, a medium brown, and then it has sort of a true Kelly green. This is close, it's a little brighter. One of the issues that I'm finding is getting the exact ric-rac color. I even looked for some vintage, is very difficult, so we're kind of having to make do. When I go to work with my ric-rac, I don't know if you can see how it sort of twists here. I'm actually going to press this so that I don't have any folds where it's twisting in the wrong direction, so that it's easier to work with. Here you can see it's folded over and going to need some pressing. So I'm actually going to be pressing my ric-rac before I work with it. All of these fabrics have been pre-treated. So this is the Portugal fabric after washing. You can see it's a little wrinkledy. The reason we chose this is it matches the dishes for my kiddo. They have some vintage dishes that are in this same color palette and sort of a stoneware. They're really cute, and this really goes with them. So I'm going to make them some placemats to go in their little apartment. And then after showing them the other fabrics that I had found, I have this green polka dot. This one, when I ordered this, not sure, I was really trying to find a sort of companion, and you see they don't really go together. But this is a hand block printed fabric from India, and it's really beautiful. This has been pre-treated once. It's a lovely weight. It would be really nice for a soft, the peasant blouse that I make all the time, that's sort of a raglan with the elastic in the neckline. This would be perfect for that. I only got 1 yard. It would also make nice napkins. It's just 100% cotton, and this came from Amazon. I did not look to see what other fabrics they had. I ordered this one specifically just because it matched this. I may order another yard so I can make myself a top out of it, make sure the colors look good on me, but I think I could get away with it, and it's very summery. So this one has been rejected for this project. I had this in my stash, and I pulled it out to see because I remembered it was brown and yellow, but the brown is much deeper than the brown in here, and they just aren't as close as I was hoping. So cute, and I think they would like this fabric, but not with this project. This one's still okay, and I might make napkins out of this. Did I already say that? And trim it, and maybe put some trim around it to tie it back in. I don't know. I haven't talked about it, but napkins are no big deal. So this is the one that they liked of all of the options I had, and it's a 1/4 inch gingham check. It's still a brighter yellow. It's going to be on the back side. I'm going to sandwich at least the green between to make a little scalloped edge, which I will show you. I may do the yellow and green together and get a double colored scalloped edge. I'm not sure. The thing I haven't decided is if I want to put any ric-rac across these lines. I think it would be cute it would take a ton of ric-rac if I were going to do every line. So when I get these cut, I will decide on how much ric-rac, if any, that I'm going to use on top. I may just stitch between the two layers before and this is the other thing I'm trying to decide. If I do that, it's harder for me to do the sandwich and flip to make the ric-rac. So I don't know that I'm going to do that either. If I do stitch it, it'll be at the end as a finishing. I think it's the only way to do the method that I want to do. I'm going to use a 3/8 inch seam allowance, I'm pretty sure all the way around. So I will be sacrificing some of my design. I have so much of this I'm not worried about. I only need to get 4 placemats. So we're going to start cutting out now. I've looked to see what's a sort of typical size of placemat, and it's like 12 by 18. So I counted my blocks, and if I do 5 by 7, I'm 12 by 17, so I think that's perfect. So what I'm going to actually do is mark off my blocks, and by doing that, I'm looking at which block will be my outside edge. So in this case, I'm going to have the flower is going to end up being my outside edge, and then I'm going to come over and mark 3/8 from that so that I get my, my exact size. And I'm just using a piece of chalk here so that I end up getting the cutting line. That's what I'm working on. It's just my cutting line. And you can see I'm sacrificing some of my design. Now, I can't guarantee that this is printed perfectly on grain, so that sort of thing we're going to worry less about for this project if we want to keep our pattern straight. We've got a blue line here and a blue line here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to do my 3/8 inch on this side. The lines are pretty stinking straight. And then I'm going to come up here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and do the same thing. Make sure I'm on the 3/8 and not the 1/2 inch. And I'm going to do this for all 4 placemats. Now I can offset this if I want some of them to have these blocks on the outside edge. I can do that. So I'm definitely going to have 2 that match, that are the same, and then when I go to do the next one, I'm pretty sure they're all going to be just like this, just to have less wasted fabric. So I'm going to mark all of these and cut them out. I have gone to my gingham now. I have my little placemats here. They look super cute. Here's my gingham check, and I am truing up the edge. One of the things about gingham is if you have it skewed a little bit when you're sewing, it's really obvious. If I show you this edge, if the edge was like this on the back side where you can see your gingham is not straight, it just never looks nice. So I want to make sure this is nice and straight when I cut it and when I sew it, so that I don't have any issues, because I've got lines on this and lines on the other one to keep straight. So that's going to be the fiddliest bit of this. So I'm just truing up one edge. I'm going to cut out my backs of this, and then I'm going to cut out my batting that's fusible, and I'm going to fuse it to this. I'll see you over at the ironing board in a minute. Made it to the ironing board. I'm going to press all of my pieces individually first. Of course, not the batting because it has the little glue dots on it. This side's the glue dot, so I'm going to iron all these so they're nice and just no wrinkles at all. Then I will fuse the batting to this piece. I could glue it to either, but I think this is the one. I did cut the batting just a wee bit smaller than the placemat. You can see just a little bit smaller all the way around. I may have to trim up a little bit, but I was just trying to get smaller so that I don't have too much of that batting in the seam allowance. That was my hope. Okay, back after pressing. Okay, you can see I've trimmed to that first check, and I am going to start pressing. I just have my iron sitting on it right now, just trying not to move it around very much. I know this doesn't fuse real well, like it won't stay forever, but I just want it to stay until I get it to the sewing machine. And if you need to, you can actually put a few tacks in there too to keep it in place. Remember, when fusing, you press straight down, you don't rub it around. When you iron back and forth with a fusible piece that has glue on it, it actually disturbs that glue and it makes it fuse not as well as just being real straight down. If you have one of those presses that comes, you know, those big presses, those would be the best if you have one. And normally I get out my silicone sheets so that I don't accidentally fuse to the ironing board, but because I have trimmed away, it's all within my fabric, so I'm not worried about it. And you can kind of see it's starting to stick. I'm not going to move it too much. You really don't want to move it till it's set, till it cools, because it makes it stick a little longer. And I might flip it over and fuse from the other side because the fabric is thinner on the other side, and it will right now the heat is going through the batting to the glue. When I flip it over, it'll only go through the fabric to the glue, so it might make it fuse a little better or a little longer after the first go around to do it again on the other side. Okay, I'm back for round 2. I flipped it over. I did give it a little spray with my spray bottle because it does get the temperature up a little bit just for fusing purposes. And we're going at it again from this side. And the kitty cat is back. She stood at the door crying, but I'm through cutting, so hopefully she'll stay out of the way. All right, it is time to choose our ric-rac. We're going to choose which ric-rac, all or none. I am going to send pictures to my kiddo right now, and I'm going to put them in here for you so you can see the options. First, I'm going to show them the green alone, and then a green and yellow together, and then a green and brown together, and then a brown alone. Originally, they thought they wanted just green, but they didn't know exactly what I was doing. I'm going to send them the pictures. I sent them the pictures, and they ended up choosing brown alone. So there's lots of ways to do this sandwiched in. I have slightly different, I have a little longer seam allowance on this piece than I do on the gingham check. So what I'm going to do is baste this on this line first. So it's on there and I don't have to worry about it anymore. And then when it's sewn, I will have that stitching line on the back that I can see when I'm sandwiching the other piece to it, so I can stitch right back on top of it again. I think I'll stitch this on in brown. So if it gets moved a little bit, you're going to see brown and not the other color. So I'm going to just sit and sew this all the way around. I'm using clips. Let me take this off so you can see how I'm doing the corner. And the corner here, we just kind of squeeze it so it pokes out like that, and so you get this little extra loop right on the corner. Now the other thing I could do is curve my corners like that, which would look cute and perfectly appropriate. I've thought about both ways. I think I'm going to leave them square, however, though this is cute. I just think the square is going to be the way they would like it, and I think that's the way I like it too. I think I'll probably come back and do some stitching on these lines also, but ric-rac first. The sewing machine, I have just lined up my ric-rac. I've got my even feed foot on. I have brown on top and ivory on the bottom, and I am lining this up so that it just fits right on top of this line. And I'm just going to stitch it down. I'm stitching at, I've currently got it set at 3.2. It's not quite a basting stitch, it's just a long stitch. And I'm just going to carefully go right down the middle. I'm trying not to stretch or anything. It does want to move, so I'm just trying to keep it in place. We're kind of going right down the middle. It's attached to the spool, and I'm just letting it wind off as I go. I could have done them like in different colors. Let's say you're making a set of 6 of these. I have 3 colors of ric-rac. They could have been 2 of each color on the edge, though I really like the brown best. I think it matches the closest. The green was my second choice. The yellow matches the gingham better, which is on the back side, and would be good as an accent, I suppose. So here is how it's looking, and when that gets folded back, see our little scalloped edge? And then when I go to apply the other piece, because this has got a stitching line already on it, I'm going to stitch directly on top of that again so that I don't mess up my ric-rac. And we're gold. We're good. It's stitching it twice, but it makes it. I have found that if I sandwich it without doing it this way first, my ric-rac moves in there and my scallop doesn't end up as good. Now, what's going to show in the scallop is what's on this side. This side is going to be in seam allowance. I want to make sure that I'm happy with what it looks like on this side, so I'm going to stitch down and sink my needle, and then check. Okay, I'm going to turn it, and I'm going to turn this. I think that's going to be the easiest way to get me the best look. Take a few stitches, sink, straighten this back out, and keep going. Now you could sew off each direction and cut it. That would be a second option for your corners. Let me sew a little ways and we'll see if we like how it looks. All right, let's look at that corner. So here's how it looks when it's folded out. Yeah, see, that makes that little edge. That's just right. Okay, I'm just going to do that for all of my corners. All right, I'm going to be here for a while, slowly going around. Normally I'm sort of speedy at the machine, but when I'm doing details like this, I go really slow. So I'm just going to stitch for a while, and I'll see you when I have all of this on. Let me show you a little trick. If you have a knee lifter, a Bernina, you can pull it out, slide your tape that is on a spool like this, and put it back in and let it roll off. You don't, your knee's hitting down here when you use it, so it doesn't really get in the way, but it lets it roll off and it kind of keeps it out of the way. It's a nice little trick, and depending on the side of the spool, it won't fall down. So for me, it hits the table right there. So it just stays right in that space. So you've seen me sitting here pretty much free-handing this. I wanted to show you the back side so you can see it's actually going on nice and straight right on that line. Just fine. I'm having no issues. All of them look just like that. And here it is on the other side before it gets folded back to make the scallop. So I'm on my last one, and then we'll be ready to marry the two pieces to each other. I will switch out my thread colors before then. I'm ready to marry the back to the front. I'm just clipping them together. I'm making sure I somehow mismeasured my back, so they're a little bit narrower, but they still fit. I'm just having to be careful and pay attention. So I'm clipping them together. I will be sewing with this one on top so that I can see my lines. And by seeing those lines, I will make sure that I get my ric-rac. I will hit the ric-rac in the right spot. So I'm just going to use my even feed foot. I've got ivory top and bottom. Now when I come back and I want to do my quilting lines, I'm actually going to put a heavier thread on that's just going to look a little more attractive for the quilting lines or the top stitching lines. So I'm just going to go all the way around. I'm going to start like here, go all the way around, and then stop over here. I'm just going to leave an opening about this big to pull it through, kind of like you would a pillow or something, and then I'll come back and close those up. So I'm going to do all 4 of these. Then I will flip them around, press them, and do my top stitching and my finishing. So this part you guys probably know how to do. This is going to be the easy, again, this is going to be in the easy basic sewing category. really trying to stitch right on top of my old stitches. That way I know for sure I'm catching the ric-rac in the right spot. Just so you can see, that's how, hopefully you can see how much shorter they are, but I am catching and it is lining up really well, so we're good. Okay, I will see you after I've done this to all four. I might step back in when I'm just finishing off so you can see the hole I've left for turning it around. All right, I'm ready to finish off the side. This is where I started, right here. So I'm leaving 2 blocks open on this one for pulling through, so I'm going to come from the corner here. I always do it in the center and never leave like corners open. It's a little easier to close in the center if you've turned the corner. It just folds up your seam allowance better, so I always leave it in the middle somewhere. It could be on an edge, on a short edge or a long edge, but I think it works better in the middle. I'm going to finish all the others. Here you can see my opening for pulling it through. We'll also do a little corner trimming so we have tidy little corners. But I'm going to finish these and then we'll come back for turning and finishing. I've completely stitched around all of them. I have this little opening, but before I flip it through, I'm going to trim corners just so we can have a little bit nicer point when I flip. This is the corner where I overlap, so I'm going to get a little more out of it because I have got ric-rac in there too. All right, find our opening. I always find a corner to poke it through with first. I left my hole big enough that it's pretty easy to turn it inside out. And then I'll get my this little tool, which is perfect for poking out corners carefully, so you don't want to make a hole in a corner. All right, now I'm going to take my little tool. I'm going to come to each corner. Oops, I'm bumping the camera. And you can see how I can push out that corner. And come to the next one. There we go. Poking out our corners. Look at how cute that little edging looks. All right, so I'm going to do this for all 4. There we go. Look at how nice that little corner is. When I flip this around and I see this cute little edge, if you make like a little dinosaur stuffy or something, this would make really cute little scale edges. If you want to make that little bumpy edge for a dinosaur tail or something. And you can get ric-rac in lots of sizes. I use sort of the traditional 1/2 inch, but okay, so there's one flipped around. I'm going to flip them all around and press them. Let me show you. Once they're pressed, looks like that. I think that's really cute. This is my opening, and then I think I'm going to do this little quilting line. And what I've done is on the bottom I just have regular sewing thread, but on the top I've put in a quilter's cotton, machine cotton. So I'm sewing with 2 different weights. But for this top side, I just think it looks nicer and it shows up a little better. So I think I'm just going to quilt across all of those edges, and then this is my opening. I started quilting before I sewed my little edge shut, and you can either just top stitch across there, which I might use the quilter's cotton and just stitch them shut, or I might come in and hand catch it. We'll see, but I'm going to quilt across it first. We'll get the quilting done first. Got my even feet foot on, and I'm just coming right down this line. I'm going to do all of these lines down, and then I'm going to come back and go across. So it'll look kind of like a traditional little quilted fabric across all of those little, there you can see the stitching up close. Make sure if you go to a heavier quilt or cotton like I have that you have a larger eyed needle. You need to match your needle to your thread. If you're sewing with a size 80, for instance, that's too small. You need to be at a 90 would be much better. So there's 2 lines in the front, and here's how they look on the back. Really cute. If you would like to see my Portugal fabric haul, I will have it linked down in this description, along with my little Portugal travel vlog, which is really a lot of music and pictures. I don't talk a lot in it. If you're curious, my only souvenir I brought back when I visited Portugal was fabric. Oops, I have the TV on. All right, this is the first one that's completely done, so I thought I would just give you a quick preview. If you look close at where I did my little quilting lines, if I get at an angle, you can see them better with the shadows on it. And then you can see the cute little scalloped edge. So this is what I consider the right side. This is my fabric from Portugal. And when I flip it over, here it looks equally as cute, with a little brown edge peeking around, and just the plain gingham. So you could use either side. I've got to finish the other 3. They are all sewn together. I've got to do the quilting part now, and then they'll be done. Thanks so much for sewing with me. I'll see you next week for another fun video.